It's great belonging to an organization and a labor movement that does things for other people. I know our primary job is to get collective agreements for our membership, and that's great. But management does that to get profits for its shareholders, and that's great too, because you've got the balance there. But when it comes to doing things in social justice, when it comes to standing outside of what you normally do and take up your own time and take up your own money and then go on the causes for other people that need your help, that's the special interest we've got in the trade union movement. And that's what you all belong to. And I know that the laws are put into effect by politicians, but the greatest mover of social justice on this earth has been the trade union movement. And that's so in Canada. For all the ideas we've got in Canada and all the social justice we've won in Canada started with the trade union movement and went to the political parties. And we showed them many, many times that it could be done at the bargaining table, and then it was adapted to legislation. And we're all part of that change now. And that's our special interest, people. I went to Chile 24th of October, and there was arranged through the UAW for me to go down through Oxfam. And Peter Klim went down through the communication workers. I brought up the fact that, although it's important to meet the Bob Rays and the Bob Whites of this world, I also want to go and live with Chileans. I want to go and live with some Chilean workers. I want to go down to the prison and meet the prisoners, because they've got political prisoners there. So it was arranged. I said it may be a little bit difficult because of the poverty in Chile. That one is, some of the people we're going to stay with can't really afford to have us stay with them. I never saw an egg on a table while I was in Chile, or a glass of milk on a table while I was in Chile. My breakfast was a bun and a piece of cheese. And they were putting out to do that. And they said the other thing is that the people are proud, although poor, and they feel embarrassed that somebody like yourself going into the house. And I said, what can you say? I said, well, if that's a problem, I don't want to embarrass anybody. But anyway, there's some people took us into the homes, and we lived with the workers down there. We went down to Chile and lived with the workers. It's difficult in Chile being in the labor movement, and you're all interested in the labor movement here, but in Chile the law is a little different. Any 25 workers can organize a union in Chile. There's a little difficulty here, because if there's 200 workers in a plant and 25 of them organize a union, they get together, they sign all the names, they elect 3 in the leadership, and they send a letter to the government and take a letter to the firm with all the names, and now they have a union. The other 175 people don't have to belong to a union. In fact, the other 175 people can belong to 3 other unions. And then where the big unions were that had the power before, like the copper workers, and they had thousands of members in their union, the law gave the company the right to break the firm up on paper into many different small companies. And then that forced that union to break itself up and form many small unions, and all bargain at a different time with the management. And if you go out on strike in Chile, after 30 days on strike, any one particular person or any group of persons can go sit down with management and negotiate the way back into the plant. And while you're out on strike, by law, you have to have an emergency team ready to go back into the plant anytime they want you to do any kind of emergency job. So it's difficult bargaining in Chile. And if that was the only thing that was wrong with Chile is bargaining, it wouldn't be so bad. But try to discourage people being in a union. They'll pick you up, say, in Toronto tonight. You'd all be suspect in Chile, because you'd be judged trade union leaders, committees, editors of papers. And they take you away. They'll take you to somewhere outside of Winnipeg and take you to the police station and say, there he is. There's Len Hope. You've got his photograph. Len, you come back here 3 times a day, morning, afternoon, and night. Now off you go, and you stay around this area for 3 months. We don't have the telephone system like we have here. It's the next day or the day after that your wife or your spouse will find out that you've been sent into internal exile. So although they're very poor, what the trade union movement does there is they take little collections up and try to get money to the relegated local union leadership and try to look after the families with the back at home. And it puts an awful strain on the wife back at home, not knowing where her husband is or what's going to happen to them. Besides having to work in those conditions and try to build a union, and the devastated the unions in Chile, there's extreme poverty. And we went into the shanty towns. They call them poblaciones. And the shanty towns are given areas where people went onto the land and seized this free land and then tried to hang on to it and build shacks. In 1 kilometre area, that's La Victoria, the shanty town of La Victoria. And there are 32,000 people live in that area. And they have common pots and they have soup kitchens and they try to feed each other. And at lunchtime, in most of the places, they cut out the evening meal. And at lunchtime, the children get the food first. And if there's any left, the adults get it. That's how bad it is.
Somos todos hermanos y hermanas.
None of us can exist on an island by ourselves.
Podemos existir en una isla por nosotros mismos.
What happens in one country
Porque lo que ocurre en un país
happens in another later on.
ocurre en otro luego.
It's important for us that we all
Y es importante para
have a
nosotros
strong union
que
movement
tengamos un
in every
movimiento
country,
sindical muy fuerte en cada uno de los países
so we can fight
para poder
properly
luchar correctamente
for the people who labor for a living.
por las personas que trabajan por vivir.
And the communication workers would like you to have a day in the life of Canada. You can imagine there will be some rebellion in areas like that. And the army come in, and they come in with the gun-shipped helicopters, and then they come in with the army trucks, and they swarm out with the microphones, and they're yelling at you to get into the street. If you don't get into the street, they come and get you, and they line the men up in the middle of the street, if you can call it the middle of a street. And when the Great Repressions are on, they start piling these men into trucks to try to take them away. And in La Victoria, there's a priest works there called Pierre Dubois. And when that happens, this priest comes walking along the street and he lays in front of the trucks that are trying to take these men away. And he stays laying there. And he doesn't ask anybody else to come with him. And he won't move until they've unloaded these guys off the trucks, and then he goes back to his teaching and helping the poor. And that in itself, I wouldn't do it. God, when you're there and you see the repression, it breaks your heart. And that in itself is something to do with great courage. But late last year, he had a partner that was a French priest over there too, and the partner was shot through the back of the head while he was reading the Bible in his room. And they say it was a stray police bullet. It was a police bullet, and wrote in the index of the Bible where he fell and died. And I saw the room. We took photographs of the room. Forgive them, Lord, for they know not what they do, he wrote.
Casa parroquial de la Victoria es allanada por una unidad militar que busca armas y materiales subversivos. Los pobladores, sus amigos, quedan desolados.
There's also a strike on while we were down in Chile, so we took the opportunity to go to the two main ports, San Antonio and Valparaiso. And the Union Hall is right near the gates of the dockyard, and it's kind of isolated on like a little corner in itself. And the troops are out, and they've got the masks on, and they've got the guns, and they're in pairs across the road. We went into a big hall. The hall was a little bit bigger than this, and all the Union members there. They had some people who were coming in from Canada, so they were really pleased to see us. Just to be down there, just to be there with them, and the appreciation that we took the time to go see them was really terrific. And they asked me to say a few words to the dock workers, and I was really pumped up, and it was a great day out. It was all 80-degree weather where we were, and the windows were open, the breeze was blowing through the place, and I started to talk to them about workers around the world having to unite in the struggle against these dictatorships and against economic repression and rise up and fight who's ever trying to put you down until we finally win. And that was the vein of my speech, and when it was over I got a real good reception, and I jumped down from the podium with my interpreter, and he says, "Len," he says, "the army are here outside, the windows are open." I said, "Don't worry about that, Henrik, they don't understand a word I'm saying." He said, "They understand every word I'm saying when I'm interpreting," he said. And we went to see the political prisoners. We've got two jails in Santiago. One is the downtown jail, and it's a hellhole, and one is the uptown jail where people that have a bit of money can have a little bit of influence and get some extra favors in jail. And they put the Labour leaders in the uptown jail, and they went on a hunger strike in the uptown jail because they objected to being away from the rank and file Labour leaders in the hellhole. So we get outside this jail and we leave all our stuff. I accept a couple of Canadian pins, 2 packets of cigarettes, and then they say you go in, keep your passport, and you go into this great big room. And Charles Dickens couldn't have described it. It was terrible. It was dingy. It was dirty, and this mass of humanity in the room. And there's 5 guards. We go through like this maze to get in, and 5 guards stood with guns looking right down at the prisoners this way. And at the other end, through bars, there's another 5 guards looking with guns coming down the other way. And I went looking around with my interpreter for the guy I wanted to find, and I found him, and I introduced myself, and he was stood with his buddy, and his mother was sat on a low bench. He introduced next to him. He introduced me to his mother. He'd be in jail for 3 years, political prisoner, said he had a gun. Everybody's either got a gun, or they're an illegal immigrant, or they do something against the new law, and they whip them away like that. And I start asking them about the conditions in the jail. And they live in cells that are condemned. And after the earthquake, they tried to sleep outside those cells because it was really bad. And if there were any aftershocks, they were really worried. And they were forced back into the cells at gunpoint. And with being political prisoners, they fight the guards, literally fight the guards in that prison for recognition as political prisoners. They don't believe they should have to be with the common criminals there, and they're made to mix with the common criminals. And they fight for that. And for that trouble, they get sent down to the metro. And the metro is 3 underground dungeons. It's so far below the earth it's rather warm, and they'll put them in here for 5 days and throw water in the cells so that it'll be in steam for 5 days. And they'll let them out, and they're organised in the committee, and they go fight again for the rights. It took them about 4 months of fighting to be able to get food for themselves and cook their own food. They started to do that when 2 of their members were poisoned, and one got his throat ruined with the food in the jail. And they fought a fight till they could make crafts, so they could have their own food. And that's the kind of the crafts they make. And this guy's telling me all this, and I look down and his mother's crying, and I feel rather really bad about it because he's me bringing up the subject. He's been in 3 years, and I kneeled down next to her, and I put my arm around her, and I said, "Listen," and it goes through an interpreter. "I'm sorry," I said. "I really didn't mean to make your son talk about what was going on, but I think he's going to be all right. He's been here 3 years, and it's going to be all right." My interpreter said, No, Len, she's not talking about that. She's not crying about that. She's so happy that you came down from Canada all that way, and that you would take the time to come into this jail, and you would stand with my son in solidarity. It means so much to him. And I just always going to remember you for doing that. And I started crying, and there we are. I had my arms around her crying, and my son got hold of my arm and helped me up to my feet. And I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cause that scene." He says, "Don't worry about it." He said, "I'd like to give you something for coming down." And he gave me a dove made out of animal bone that they make in the prison too. So I put it on there, and I told him that I would wear that dove until the labor movement in Chile was free. So that every day I shave now, I remember my friends in Chile, and I'm not going to forget them.
Chileno, compañero, compatriota, por favor levántate, no aguantes que nos sigan matando a nuestra gente, por favor, exijamos justicia de una vez por todas.
And we've been collecting money and sending some money to the women of Medici and to the political prisoners. For the women in the audience now, I'm going to just wrap up with the women of Medici. They started about 3 years ago and now got committees in a lot of communities in Chile. And they're organizing women to go out on the streets so they can have their place in the political process when democracy comes back. And they all believe democracy is coming back. And they help women to set up places where you can weave from the shearing the sheep to co-op so you do the final product. And they're helping women do that. And they're helping women in counseling when their husbands are relegated, when they're sent into internal exile. And they're helping women to get a place in Chile's life. And they'll be the fastest growing organization in Chile. And just a week prior to us getting down there, their offices were raided and they were thrown on the floor. And they're all, the women, there's not one of them under 55 that's heading up this organization. And the walls were sprayed and all the equipment was taken and all their hair was sprayed with paint. And, you know, those unidentified civilians, they call them down there. The secret police put civilian clothes on and go in. And that's what happens to them. And they keep on organizing. But this Friday, at 11 o'clock Canadian time, 1 o'clock Chilean time, those women will be walking outside the palace. And they'll be walking for the disappeared, trying to find out They'll be really want to know what happened to the disappeared. And this Friday, after about 10 or 15 minutes, the police are going to come after them. And they come after them with clubs, and they're trying to teach the women how to defend themselves. They come after them with tear gas. But that isn't your regular kind of tear gas. This tear gas makes you vomit from the stomach immediately. It attacks your respiratory system immediately and blinds you from 10 to 15 minutes. And those women that aren't caught in the gas, because they don't get everybody, run and grab the women that are caught in the gas, and they run away together. And the following Friday at 11 o'clock Canadian time, the women of Medici will be marching outside of the palace trying to find out what's happened to the disappeared. And after about 15 minutes, they're going to get gassed again. And I don't know what kind of courage that takes to do that. And I said to the workers in Chile, I hope if my time ever comes in Canada, that I have to put my life on the line, like you're doing down here, that I can find the courage that you have here. And I'm talking about local union leadership, because they're going through it all the time. So I just want you to know that anything we do tonight for them will go to them. And I want you to know we haven't forgot them. And I want you to know that they were back in Santiago, Paul Mailberry, talking to those people who we were talking to. And they said, send good wishes down to the Canadians. It was a pleasure and a privilege having them with us to come and live among us, to live some of our reality. It never happened before. And in any of the delegation that we've ever had before did people want to come and live in our homes and go through the dangers we went through. And we want to thank them very much. And we look forward to seeing them again.